Today I'm sitting here, we're going to try to talk about a series of different Riverside stories, and hopefully this will be the first of many more to come when we have people that come visit, particularly during homecoming and things. We're going to sit down with them and let them tell their stories, because everybody has a Riverside story for sure, and I'm sure it'll be something we've never heard before. Today I'm sitting here with Barney Rothgery, who's a 1955 graduate and who takes care of our museum here, and he's going to share a few stories today too. But I'm going to start us off with one of my favorites. Now, some of you graduates that are cadets, people that see this, won't be able to recognize what I'm talking about, so I'll try to explain it as best I can. This is a story that happened in Florida in the early, I guess, either early 70s or late 60s. We had an apartment in Horton Barracks, which was outside of the circle in Hollywood. And there was a tree right outside of our back door that we used to sit down in lounge chairs at night and sometimes in the morning, just sitting down relaxing. It was in a quadrangle. In other words, it was a rectangular building inside, and it had doors open to cadet rooms all the way around it. So there was cadets in there. I think that at that time that was D Company. And so anyway, what the story is, my wife and I were sitting there one day at lunch. We were sitting out in the sun, and my wife has a habit of growing things in pots around the tree. So she'd take them out every day and she'd put them outside and where the pots could get, where the plants could get sun. So that we were sitting there one afternoon, and I happened to look over at the pot. She had about 10 or 12 pots around the tree. And I told her, I said, Barbara, I said, what is that plant there? And she went over and looked at it. She says, I don't know what it is. Well, I said, wait, you put it there, didn't you? She said, no, that's not one of my plants. And I said, well, reason I'm asking, because I'm pretty sure that's a marijuana plant. And she said, you know, you may be right. So I got to thinking about that, and above all the doors in the Horton Barracks, there was a transom, which had glass that you could close and so forth, so you could actually look out of the transom with the door shut. So that afternoon, after supper, I got up on a chair and I was looking out and watching the plants. And sure enough, here comes this cadet, and he comes out and he looks around, make sure nobody's looking, and he picked up the plant and he went across the courtyard and he went to his room. So I thought that was pretty curious, so I said, well, that's interesting. So I waited till the next morning, and when they were all going out to breakfast or going out to school, I guess it was going to school after breakfast, I again got on the chair and I was watching our thing, and sure enough, that same door opened, and he sort of stuck his head out and he was looking around just to make sure nobody was looking. And sure enough, here he comes with this little pot. He runs over and he puts it down by the tree. So we finally figured out what he was doing. He was putting it with my wife's plants every day so it would get sun and it would grow great. So finally that night we went over there after he had put it back in his room, and up on the lockers, the old boys would remember this, up on the lockers you used to put duffel bags up in the top, and he had put his plant behind the duffel bags and put the duffel bags in front of it where you couldn't see it. So that's when my wife was growing marijuana. That was one of her first things at Riverside. So that's a story. Barney, you got a story I know you can most probably tell.
Well, one story I guess I could tell, and it's really not very funny, but it was when I was a senior and I lived in the first floor of North Barracks. Well, at that time, first floor of North Barracks, that had the guard room, Colonel May's office and Colonel Beaver's office. And of course, the gang showers, toilets, everything were right down at the far end. And naturally, you had to go past Beaver's office and May's office. And normally, you didn't have two cadet officers rooming together, but Larry Algar and I were able to convince May that we wanted to room together my senior year. He was a junior that year. And so there's 4 to a room. And we started to talk about, Larry and I said, well, both of us can't do the inspection, especially we were talking about morning inspections. And so we got this great idea that we would rotate. He'd do it one morning, then I'd do it the next morning. That way the rest of us could sleep in longer. And so what happened, it was going pretty good for about 30 days. And then evidently Colonel May got wind of what was going on. And so one morning, what happened was, before the bell rang for morning inspection, Colonel May went to our door, had his hand ready to knock on that door. The minute the bell rang, he knocked on the door, walked in, and started giving up all of his demerits. And I was ready to do the inspection, so I was ready. But he said, come on, we're going to make inspection. And that's the hall that Captain Trice, who was the quartermaster, he never really made inspections. So I had it made because I pretty much made all the inspections. So consequently, anyway, when he found out, we made inspection that morning. And then when we were going out for evening formation, mess formation, I was walking to the front door of South Barracks, and here comes Colonel May coming about. We pretty much met about the door. I turned to Colonel May and I said, well, we got the word. You won't see that again. He said, no, because I'm moving Larry Algar out of that room too. But it was funny because, he found out he was ready the minute that bell rang. We didn't have a chance on that. So that was one. I can tell you another story that wasn't so funny, and that was same year, senior year, and I had just gotten my bayonet. Let's see, was it a sword? No, bayonet. I guess that the sword is the straight one. We had
saber.
Saber. That's what I want to say. Well, we got the saber again. We were in the, and this is what cadets better not do, what we did. But one of the guys that was ruined, I had a fellow by the name of Heil, and also Bob Lancaster, and I think Descanio was there too. But I think it was Heil that got the idea to start acting up, and he grabbed my saber and started waving it in front of me. And stupid me, I grabbed a hold of the end of it. And of course, I was putting pressure on it to stop him from doing it. And stupid me, I let go of it, and that saber went right up my nose. And blood was all over I was in my bathrobe at the time, and it was soaked, and I was running down to the nurses to Maud, yeah. And see, I'm a Yankee, so Maud, she never liked Yankees.
Anybody that lived below the Mason-Dixon line was okay, but above you were in trouble.
And I never had been down there really, and so, I really didn't want to go running down there, but I did, and of course she stopped to blame it. But really, my bathrobe I had to throw away because it was just soaked with blood. That's one thing you learn. You never play with your saber. So those are two stories I can tell you.
Well, one last story I'm going to give you, and then we're going to cut it off for the day. But Colonel Beaver and Colonel May were two of the best people at the jobs that they did that I ever saw.
Yeah,
And I don't
yes,
think they ever slept.
No,
I really don't. I don't. Because nothing went on the campus that they didn't know about. But this particular thing, this is one of Colonel Beaver's favorite things that he used to do. He used to make checks at night after taps. And he'd come around maybe 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning to see if anybody was out or gone. And if he'd find somebody gone, all he would do is climb in the bed and go to sleep. And then when the guy came back, he'd have to wake him up so he could get back in his bed. And he did that a number of times, and he'd say, well, see you tomorrow morning in the commandant's office. But that's what he'd do. If he found somebody gone, he'd just get in the bed and go to sleep. And then they'd have to wake him up when he came back. Many, many stories that we'll tell from now on, but there's so many things that used to go on.
That reminds me of one, too, of Colonel Beaver, because like you said, he'd make the rounds up at night and everything. This was my first year, and I was in North Barracks on the first floor, so he could walk right past the window there. And what was interesting was I was a young kid that was homesick and scared and whatever. And I was in a room that, in those days, you had to have a red tag to be a smoking room where you could smoke.
16 years ago, you had that
Yeah. And so I got a hold of cigarettes somehow from one of the suite mates or whatever. And I was we had just one little wooden table in there, and I was at the table, and I figured, I'm gonna try smoking. So I lit a cigarette, and I was puffing away, and then I had laid it down on my right side, and of course the window was on the left, and here he comes walking by, and that cured me of wanting to ever smoke, because I never touched another cigarette after that, because I was scared to death of it. Because that was a 50 demerit report or whatever in those days. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that was funny. But he cured me of smoking real quick.